Hello, Cubs fans, and welcome to a brand new edition of Cubs on Tap. I am Ron Luce. I'm joined tonight by the one and the only Mr. Nick Hudson. Nick, buddy, my friend, how are you doing tonight?
Doing very well, Ron. Doing very well. You got to be happy after these two victories, even though they were kind of a struggle.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were, Nick. And we're going to get into all things this series here in just a hot second. But as we noted, the Cubs defeat the White Sox for the second consecutive day by a final score of 7-6. Nick and I joked in the pregame, or I guess pre-show discussion here about these two games. And they're very much the Spider-Man meme of just pointing directly at each other. Like, oh my God, it's you. Because these two games were almost identical the whole way through, right? The starter gets beat up a little bit. They're a few runs down. You know, they got to make this comeback. They do, and then tonight was a walk-off. Tomorrow or yesterday was obviously the go-ahead with Ian Happ, and then the big pickoff in the ninth. It's pretty crazy. It's pretty crazy, but it was worthy of breaking out the new addition to the merchandise of the W headband here for tonight's show, because at least we're talking about wins. A series win, as Jeremiah says here. We won a freaking fracking series. Yes,
finally,
we won a series. The series-less win drought is over, and the Cubs are winning games. Jeremiah would have loved to balk off because that's just Jeremiah's sense of humor. But he says, ladies and gentlemen, the summer of Mike Talkman has begun. And Joey says, talk it off. Cubs on talk. Kind of like the Cubs on talk. That one's getting a gold.
That's great.
Star. Good job, Joey. Joey killed it on the I don't know if you saw the post from Cubs on Tap tonight. That was all Mr. Ricotta. The Mr. Deeds of Morel showing the trainer his foot. Did you see that tweet?
Oh, I got to see that. No, I have not seen that.
It's good. It's good. Over at Cubs on Tap, for everybody that's curious of what that is. Hilarious, though. Absolutely hilarious. That was a good one.
I got to check that out.
Joey gets a big gold sticky star for that one, because that was funny. Like, I actually out loud laughed at when I saw that come across. That was absolutely freaking electric. A couple more comments here. Still, it says Cubs keep coming back like the X that won't stay away. Yikes! That might give some people some PTSD listening to this show all around. Whoever's listening. Matt says heart attack. Neris came through. He sure did. And then Scott from Iowa. Mike Talkman has lived any Northside kid's dream. He has a walk-off home run against the White Sox, and last year had a walk-off home run catch against the Shitbirds. Yeah, he really is having like every Cubs fan's dream. Like, you rob the Cardinals of a win, and then you rob the White Sox of a win in consecutive seasons. And hey, and that's why, again, the summer of Mike Talkman. But Nick, let's get into this thing here, shall we? Because it's great that they won a series. Like, I'm happy. I know you're happy as well. But it's a painful series win, because Juice noted it kind of yesterday in our group chat. I think we're all on the same page with it. Like, these were ugly wins.
Yeah.
And not even like good ugly wins either. These were just like, oh my God, you got away with it, because the White Sox might be the worst team in baseball history when it's all said and done after 162.
Exactly.
Right? They have a lot of things to clean up. Wins are cool. We'll take them. Dubs are dubs. We don't ask how, we ask how many.
Yep.
But they do need to fix the how if they're going to get wins, because, even though you got a team that's very beatable coming up here on the schedule in the Cincinnati Reds, so the team that just took 2 of 3 from you in your own ballpark over the weekend, they got to clean a lot of shit up, Nick. And it scares me a little bit. I don't know how you feel, but it scares me a little bit.
It scares me a little bit as well, man. Last night, it's one of those moments where you're just as a fan, not a you look at it different when you're a podcast host, where you're like analyzing every bit. But if you're a fan, I looked at it like, oh, we beat the White Sox. Yes, thank God. I was clapping. I was going crazy. I'm like, yes. And then Juice brought me down to reality, where I'm like, wait a minute. Why was it so goddamn hard to beat the White Sox, the worst team in baseball? Oh, That's because we're struggling. We're majorly struggling. If you look at the stats and everything from May, like way down, everything's way down. So I'm scared. I'm very scared. And then tonight did not ease any of that. Like you said, the starter gets beat up. The only thing you can kind of point to is they rallied around, and there were some great at bats. But like you said, it's great at bats against one of the worst bullpens. Like you have to take this with a grain of salt, and you have to be like, these were almost necessary wins. I think if you lose both these games, you almost are looking at like a disaster scenario, just of vibes and going into this stretch where strength of schedule, you hear it, strength of schedule, strength, that can all go out the window, as you know. So it's just momentum and building on that. And baseball is a funny game. Like there's a lot of time. So we'll see.
Indeed. Baseball is a funny game. And I literally just had this conversation last night with my girlfriend, Katie. I was sitting there on the couch and like they came back and they won. And I was like, this is great. But like, I literally had to remind myself because I was so stressed out through the whole game and just like angry the whole game of like, this is literally game number 60. Or, I'm sorry, last night was game 61. Like, this is the 61st game this team has played. So like after tonight, they still have 100 fucking games on the schedule. Like this season is far from over. And it's just like, it's reminding yourself that like, there's a lot of baseball still to be played. Like they can absolutely turn this thing around. And we've seen this team when they play at their best. Like there is a version of this team in the tank. We've all seen it. We know it's there. It's just, kind of like what Jed said to the media the other day. He was like, we just got to find that, essentially that group, right?
Yeah.
You just need to find that your best baseball. It just so happens that the entire team is playing some of their worst baseball at this point.
Yeah, exactly. And like if these guys are playing to the back of the baseball card, you're looking at much better results at this point. But like you said, they're all slumping at the same time. And then you pair that with some pitching woes that the Cubs didn't have to face at first. The starting pitching was kind of solid for quite a while, where the offense had kind of been non-existent. So now you're kind of seeing that double punch haunt you to this point. But like you said, still 100 games. You could very much turn this whole thing around in June. We're just at the very beginning of June. So this is a time where the Cubs can take advantage of a team that is the worst in baseball. And like you said, possibly going to be the worst in the history of baseball, and build on that, because you're going into this stretch of baseball in which you're playing teams that are under 500. You need to use this as a springboard for the harder parts of the schedule that will be coming.
Yeah, incredibly well. And just off the top of the dome here, your next three series are the Reds, the Rays, and the Cardinals. And then you got the Giants coming in. So all teams that are either hovering right around 500 or below 500. So winnable games, effectively, right? You tell yourself, okay, these are all winnable series coming up. Really all the way through essentially the Milwaukee series is the way I look at it. Like the Mets are terrible. You've got the 3 with the Giants. Then you go to 4 with the Giants out on the West Coast before you come back to the Midwest to play the Brewers for 3. So they need to get some shit together. And we're going to jump back into the comments here real quick, Nick. Darren says, my man, Mike Talkman, gotta believe. Absolutely. There was a good, this one was funny. For those that are wondering, I'm very, very sneaky, sir. Like I almost can hear it in the character voice as soon as it was typed in the comment section. Sonny brings up a good point here, though. He says, we're at the point where they need to win however they can get them. A series sweep against the rival always needs to be celebrated. Agreed. Again, I think from a pride standpoint of just like, yes, this is the thing with, I think what people need to understand with the rivalry per se, right, is this isn't so much a rivalry because these teams like battle in the playoffs and they battle for playoff position and it's competitive every year. Like it's not necessarily that. It is strictly a rivalry because it's in the same city. And again, it's a rivalry that the fans get up for, truly. Like on both sides of town, you'll get people that say they don't care about the other side of town. Maybe that's true. Maybe for 158 games of the season, you truly don't care about the other team on the other side of town, but you still want to beat every team every night. And it's a little more sweeter when it's, a lot of your friends getting involved, right? I mean, our friends over at Sox on Tap getting involved. there's a little bit more heated, kind of tensions between people. And I think that's something that just naturally needs to kind of be kept in mind when people are considering that, because, it is still a rivalry of sorts. It's just not the same rivalry as what we consider, right, with the Brewers, the Cardinals, even the Reds to an extent, even the Pirates for some seasons, depending on when it is. Jeremiah says, thing called momentum is real. Matt says these games seem like looking in a mirror, just like we said with the Spider-Man meme a little bit earlier. Stolitz is starting pitching, regressing, defense and bats need to get them through this. I agree wholeheartedly with that. Juice said they won these two, but they still stink. Play better, don't play good defense. We were promised that. Do things you were promised. We were promised they play good defense, and the defense has been.
The defense is rough, yeah.
And that's a great place that we can pause here for a minute as we're working our way through the comment section here. Is they just wholeheartedly couldn't get it going. Like, the Morel play, you see all these defensive miscues that are just absolutely fucking brutal. You know what I mean? Like, 100%. It's been hard to watch. And especially, I think the worst part with the defense right now, Nick, it's not like, they're up 6-1 in a game and you get like a bad play in the field. It's always in these like critical moments that these plays are happening. Say I'm dropping the ball against the Reds.
Oh, yeah.
Thankfully he makes up for it with the bat, but like that could have been disastrous. That could have been a series sweep for the Reds. If maybe it's not for him coming back and hitting the grand slam. The Morel play yesterday that led to a couple of runs. I mean, that's the thing. Like everybody's like, oh, well, Shota Imanaga is regressing and he's coming back to earth. If they get out of that inning, Shota had 1 earned run yesterday.
Yeah.
4 of those 5 runs were unearned because of the damn error. Like that's the only reason the inning kept going. And I feel like there's time and time again where we've talked about that this season where, the starting pitcher only gave up 1 earned, but he gave up 5 total runs because of an error that was made on a really stupid play.
Oh, 100%. And you're talking about the game of Major League Baseball. If you give a team 4 outs, a professional team, they're going to make you pay for it. That is what you need to do time in and time out. If the team gives you an extra out via an error, via a dumb baseball IQ mistake, that's just what you do. You take advantage. And I'm very shocked to see this defense. Like they're really struggling out there. And obviously there were a couple question marks at the cornerstone positions, which that doesn't help, with Morel, and even Bush has struggled at times over at first, but even up the middle, Dansby and Nico for the first part of the year, it wasn't always solid. So it's been difficult, but like you said, the starting pitchers have, it seems like it's just bad luck at times where they're right about to get out of the inning and then someone kicks the ball around. And you're like, what just happened?
Yeah, exactly. It's frustrating. It's frustrating to say the least. A lot of great comments here. We're going to try to get to at least a few of them. Still says here, Lieutenant Dan had a good game. I think he's had a couple of good games now that he's started to string together here as Dansby Swanson. And maybe this is exactly what he needs to get going to be a bigger part of the lineup. Scott reminds us 100 to go. He says they need to win probably 62 of them to win the division. He says insert a tearaway pin of ex-Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot. That's a fun one. A couple of the comments I do want to say for a little bit later in the show because they do relate to like future games. So that's something that I definitely want to do there. Just quickly here with Juice, -17 in team defense saved. That's unacceptable. Your boy Lucas is here. Nick, he says Nick is my uncle.
Hello, Lucas.
And let's see what else. There's a couple of good ones here as well. There's an interesting one here from Darren. He says, our trade line deals must be well thought after the season. Very well may have needs at first base, third base, catcher, and in the bullpen. I think in catching and bullpen for sure. First and third, yeah, maybe. But again, it depends because I saw a comment. I think it was from Stolet a little bit earlier. It might have been from Stolet. I'm trying to find it. It was from Stolet. He says here, Suzuki needs a DH unless Morel is hurt. Well, then who you can't have both of them in the lineup then at the same time. Yeah. That's just poor lineup construction if you can't have 2 of your better bats in the lineup because of defensive, a lack of defensive prowess. So, it's going to be interesting. I think at the deadline there, there was reports, Nick, and we can pause here and take a little talk about this as well. reports that, the Cubs were in on Pete Alonso last year at the deadline. That came out today. I believe it was from the show Foul Territory that was known. There's still a very realistic possibility that the Cubs will once again be in on Pete Alonso this year, probably for a lot less in terms of comp because he's an expiring contract and he will be a free agent at the end of the season. And to most people, right, Pete Alonso's the bat that you're like, oh, he'd look really nice in this lineup right now. If you get that big thumper who, sure, he might only hit 220, but he's going to hit 40, 45 home runs, 50 home runs. And that run production is just something the Cubs don't have right now.
Yeah, you're not getting that. That's something that I think they're definitely going to be after is that big thumper, that big power bat that they've gotten close to where they think they're going to have it. Suzuki, we all talked about could be the big bat, but it just seems like they're going to have to go find something more surefire if they really want to get more power. But there's always a power outage with this Cubs team, and it's just very frustrating because you're in a position where you can put a lot of runs on the board if you just had a little more power in that lineup. Guys get on a couple more swings. So, yeah, for trade deadline acquisition, definitely that power bat, something to look at.
Indeed. It'll have to happen. Darren said Suzuki has to play right field to his capabilities, period. Yeah, I mean, you don't really have a choice. I think they would rather upgrade at third just because you're not paying Morel a lot of money and he can be your DH versus like, hey, we're paying a guy, $20 million a year to be a DH and say a Suzuki. Like it changes things up a little bit there. Scott has a good point here. And this is something that I do want to talk about because he had a great game again tonight and he had a great game yesterday. And that's Ian Happ. Said Ian Happ's on a tear as a guy that said he would fall off this season. He is loving the hot hitting. And yeah, Scott was very down on Ian Happ. Ian Happ's a slow starter, Nick, and we've talked about this time and time again over the years. He's coming around at the right time. Like, he really is the one consistent bat that they have in this lineup right now. Over the last 14 games, including tonight, so this number's probably still in the same ballpark in terms of what he's doing, over 700 slug. He's finally starting to slug, which was something that he did a little bit early on in the season when this team was really hot in early April and then very much started to cool off kind of around that mid-April mark. Suzuki gets hurt. Pretty much the Suzuki injury was kind of what started the cold spiral of this team.
Yeah.
It's just one thing to keep in mind where it's like, what do you do? You know what I mean? You need a guy to get going. Ian Happ's been the one to get going. I actually wrote about it today over at OnTapSportsNet.com. Absolutely shameless plug. He's been hot, and he's doing exactly what this team needs him to do right now. And I love it. Absolutely love seeing Ian Happ be a difference maker. Ever since Nick, he's gone into that 5-hole, it feels. He's really become a difference maker there.
Yeah, he's just seeing the ball a lot better. And his swings, I don't know about you, but like when he is swinging, it looks like I'm playing a lot better with just tracking the ball, making contact. It just looks like he's made an adjustment. I'm not quite sure what adjustment he's made, but he's staying on the ball a lot more. Even you saw today via the ball he was way out in front of to take the lead, and he hit at the end of the bat there. He stayed through the zone and was able to push the ball out far enough to drop in there and get the hit, which was nice because those soft contact, I don't know about you, but I've seen a lot of soft contact runs against the Cubs. So I'm like, let's get one back here.
It's nice when the baseball gods have a sense of humor and give one back to the Cubs.
Right.
After seeing a number of them. Still here with a comment regarding Happ. He says, only thing he worries about with Happ is that he has been feasting on fastballs. He said his average on breaking balls is very low. I think the one thing with Happ, though, where he can get away with that is because of his eye and because of how many walks he takes. He's going to force you to throw breaking balls for strikes, which, let's be honest, most pitchers in Major League Baseball don't do. Like, they expect you to chase. They throw the fastball in the zone to get you to sit on it, or they'll throw it just on, kind of on the outer edges of the zone. And then they want you to chase whatever that, the curve, the slide, whatever their breaking stuff is. Hap's eye is something that these guys, I think, respect. And I think that's why he's getting so many fastballs right now.
Yeah.
It probably doesn't hurt that he's also hitting behind guys like Belly and Morel in the lineup on a regular basis right now in that 5-hole. But he's a guy I think that can afford to get away with feasting on fastballs, because if you throw him 3 sliders outside of the zone, more often than not, he's going to at least work you into a good at bat and maybe take a walk as a, kind of the end of it all.
Yeah. I'm sure the scouting report is don't fall behind on this guy, because it's really easy to. And if you do, then you're going to be forced to throw some pitches in the zone that he can take advantage of. So, like you said, there seems like he's getting a lot more fastballs.
100%. Darren, in agreement with that take there about Hap forcing his pick. Scott says Hap needs to pick a side, forget the hitter pitcher matchup, pick a side and let it fly. I don't know. I think he's been okay, especially lately from the right side of the plate. He had that double to give the Cubs the lead, or pardon me, he had the base hit to get on for Wisdom's home run from the right side of the plate. And then tonight he had the go-ahead RBI at the time from that right side of the plate. So
yeah,
he prides himself on being a switch hitter, and there's so few of them now in baseball that I think that's just kind of what he wants to continue to do, and that's just going to be what it is. Nick, I want to go back to a couple of comments here while we're on the topic, just with the trade deadline. I know everybody's already fascinated about trying to change this team around, and we'll dive in and we'll talk a little more here about the White Sox series as a whole. But there are a couple of people bringing up a variety of answers. Matt says here, he says he would rather have JD Martinez. He says the Cubs would have to pay Alonso to keep him. Well, sure. I mean, you'd have to pay Martinez too if you wanted to keep him. He's just older. I don't think that's necessarily a thing that should concern me. But Nick, I want to get your take on this, because I have a take on this as well. Jeremiah says trade proposal: Pete Alonso for Kevin Alcantara, Drew Gray, and Matt Mervis. This is off the dome. What do you guys think? Way too much. That's my initial reaction. I don't think it's going to cost that much, because here's the thing: it's not like Pete Alonso has 2 years of control beyond this year. He is an expiring bat. Like, the Mets are going to be lucky if they get maybe one top 15 prospect from a team that really wants Pete Alonso. To me, that's the best case scenario for them, because you're not giving anything additional, right? Think about the Dylan Cease trade, for example. The reason that the White Sox got the haul that they got is because Cease has years of control beyond this season. That's a huge difference maker in these trades. And I don't think there's any way in hell that Kevin Alcantara gets included in that deal. I think there's a world where Matt Mervis and Drew Gray by themselves would get it done. And I even think that might still be considered a slight overpay.
That still could be too much. Yeah.
But I don't think Kevin Alcantara would need to be a part of that at all. Still, it's just giving me Bregman. That's who he's pining for the Cubs to go get. Joey with an interesting name, though, here coming out here. He says he heard the name Christian Walker today. He says, if the D-backs are sellers, what do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I like that. Yeah, if the D-backs are sellers, but it's kind of, it's like, are they going to be?
Right. I think that's the part of this whole thing that I sit here and I look at, and this is why, like, I know people are already just trying to rush to July 30th, but there's, again, right, we're sitting here talking about, well, the Cubs have plenty of time. Yeah, so does every other team in baseball. That's the problem. That's why so few teams are selling right now. Like, that's the only reason that the Marlins sold Luis Arias is because the Marlins are in shambles as a franchise. That's a very different, kind of example, I would say, when it all comes down to it. But if you look at the standings right now, Nick, as I'm pulling these up here, I'm going to look at the wild card, and I'm not even going to look at the AL. I don't care about the AL. Here's the NL wild card. Are you ready for this? Outside of your 3 division leaders, so take them away.
Okay.
Of the 15 teams in the NL, 13 of them are within 4 games of the wild card right now. Nobody's selling. Nobody's selling. Nobody's sellers.
No.
The Diamondbacks are 2 games out of a wild card spot. I would say Christian Walker. I think Christian Walker is a great baseball player. Like, I think this is a very intriguing player that would be available because he's a Gold Glove, or Gold Glove caliber, at least at first base. And
Yep.
he's a very sneaky good hitter. Like I like Christian Walker, and he's a pain in the
Yeah.
Cubs side. So anytime you get a Cubs killer on the Cubs roster, they can't kill you anymore if they're on your team now, right?
Yeah.
I
100%.
think that's the thing that just kills me right now, and it makes. And this isn't calling anybody out, and I'm not trying to ignore comments or anything of that nature. But Christian Walker's burner account said you rank. I just nobody's going to be making trades yet. That's
Yeah.
the problem. And like I know Matt says here, he said they really don't have plenty of time. The Brewers will be making moves too, sure, but nobody's trading to the Brewers yet either.
Yeah.
Because they're still trying to figure everything out. And let's even take the AL into account here. In the AL, outside of the Chicago White Sox, the Los Angeles Angels, and the Oakland Athletics, every team in the AL is within 6 games of a wild card spot.
Yeah, it's just too early. Like you
It's too
said,
early.
there's a lot more ball to be played.
The only teams that might consider making trades right now are the Rockies, the Marlins, the A's, the Angels, and the White Sox. Those are the only teams. And the problem with even some of the other teams is the reason that the trade market takes so long to get going is because all of these teams that are still in it have to kind of pick an identity effectively, right? They have to figure out if they are truly contenders or not. And a lot of teams don't figure that out until the All-Star break. And guess what happens? 2 weeks later is the trade deadline. So, most shit doesn't start happening until you get past the 4th of July holiday anyway. That's still a month away.
Yeah.
So, I fear that, like, the Cubs fan base as a whole is so, like, they're going to go up and they're going to upgrade. And, like, yeah, that's great, but they might not upgrade for 2 months. Like, this is on this team right now to have to figure shit out. Or it's guys in the system. And Scott had a comment a little bit earlier. I was sitting on this one because this is a guy that I've been pining for since well before the season. And you can call my bluff, Nick, if I haven't been. But Owen Casey.
Owen Casey.
Right now, there is only 2 bats that I think the Cubs could call up that could legitimately have a chance of being spark plugs at this point for this team. It's Owen Casey and it's Brennan Davis. That's it. To me, there's nobody else. Like, there's just nobody that's quite ready to come up and make that impact spark. Again, I know Matt's a big Matt Shaw guy. Matt Shaw needs to play as much AA baseball as he humanly can for his development. But Owen Casey had a full season at AA a year ago and mashed at AA as a 20-year-old. Then he comes up to Iowa as a 21-year-old this year and has done nothing but mash. I mean, he's almost a 300 hitter in AAA. And he's just been consistent. He had a grand slam, I think it was yesterday, as a matter of fact, for the Iowa Cubs. Or 2 days ago. Well, no, it couldn't have been 2 days ago. Minor leagues don't play on Mondays. So it had to have been last night. I mean, he is the one guy that's internal that, in my opinion, they could say, we're going to call this guy up and he's going to come up and make a difference.
Yeah, I agree. I really think that you're right.
So that's I think where it kind of stands. And I know there's some satire in this from Scott. He says, to Ron's point, trade for Bryant for Mervis. Low key, that might actually get it done. I think the Rockies are just the thing is though is Bryant has a no trade clause, so he very well could say like, "Hey, I loved my time in Chicago, but I don't want to move my family," and just sit there and unfortunately rot in Colorado. I almost said Kansas City. I don't know why I said Kansas City. Matt says trade Mervis for Crochet. That it would take a lot more to get Garrett Crochet than Matt.
It'd take a lot more to get Garrett Crochet, and you don't want to give up all that for Garrett Crochet with the number of innings that he's. It's a tough thing. Yeah,
it's so difficult. Like, think about it this way: like for people at home that are trying to mentally calculate what a trade looks like. Jamer Candelario, who signed for $15 million this offseason per season with the Reds, right? Who was a good player, but wasn't a great player by any means. Commanded 2 top 20 prospects from the Cubs. Like, Matt Mervis isn't getting it done. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think the Cubs need to give up Kevin Alcantara, but I do think it's still going to cost the Cubs some serious prospect capital to get a guy like Pete Alonso. And I'll be honest, Pete Alonso's great, but when he strikes out 4 times a game, that doesn't help the Cubs win.
No.
You know what I mean? Like, you also have to wait to see who's available, right? Because there might be names that we haven't even talked about yet that could be available. Personally, for me, you know who I'd love to see? I know it won't happen, but I'm going to say it anyway. I want the guy that just took fucking Hayden Wesneski deep last night. I want Luis Robert. That's who I want. You know how great Luis Robert would look in a fucking Cubs uniform? Playing Gold Glove defense in center field? Hell, you could put him in right field. You could DH Seiya every day. And then you can play PCA in center, and you say, hey, Belly, you go play first.
Yep.
You know how awesome that would look?
That would be epic.
Lou Bob loves hitting at Wrigley. I can tell you right now, his numbers against the Cubs in totality are stupid. Like, he's almost a 400 hitter against the Cubs.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, most of that damage has been done at Wrigley. Like, most of those home runs have come at Wrigley. Like, I remember a lot of them because they've really pissed me off over the years. So again, I'm gonna get off my high horse about trades and who does what, and and Jeremiah's saying Alex Canario and Luis Robert look very similar. They do look very similar, but I can tell you right now, one's a Gold Glover and is going to make $20 million a year, and one can't even stay on the big league roster. I mean, it's just
big difference.
There's so much to happen yet, and this is all very relevant, Nick. I'm going to try to reel it back into the conversation of this series. That's all very relevant because the Cubs do clearly need to upgrade. Like, this series showed that. You had the worst team in baseball effectively take you down to the wire in 2 consecutive games that you had to scrape your nuts across sandpaper just to get a win. What are the Reds going to do to you? What are the Tampa Bay Rays going to do to who? Yeah, sure, they're having a rough season by their standards, but still a solid ball club. What are the Cardinals going to do to you in your own ballpark, who just beat you in 2 games down in their own place? Like, the Cubs really do need to get their shit together and need to do it quick, because if one thing is certain, like, the fan base is very dead set on they need to go add something. And we've seen that this team is far from perfect.
Yeah. And it's scary. Like you said, all these other teams have all this baseball to play, but so do we. Like, what happens if we can't put shit together quick enough? Like, things could turn ugly very quickly. Well, you obviously don't want that. But what we've seen from the difference of April and May, there's really no quantifying what's to come. Like, what baseball team are we going to get? Mm-hmm. That's really the question here. So there's, like you said, there's a lot of questions for not just all the other teams, but like our team has a lot of questions right now.
Yeah, 100%. Matt has asked this twice, so I'll address the question. He said, where would Robert play? Robert would play outfield. I don't care where he plays. Truly. That's the thing. Everybody's like, well, where are you going to put him? I don't give a fuck. Find a place for him. Can he hit? That's what I care about. If he plays okay defense and he can hit, put him anywhere. I don't care. Like Lou Bob, he's a center fielder by trade, but you could play him in right field if you needed to. Play him in center field if you needed to for a day. You could play him in left field for a day. You could DH him for a day. Who cares? If that bat's in the lineup, you could tell me he magically became a catcher overnight, and I'd be like, cool. That's just they just need a bat.
One of those bats, yeah.
Yeah, he's that level of a bat, man. Like he is.
He's a special player.
I think Cubs fans, because just like we naturally don't pay much attention to the AL, I think, unless you're like a hardcore, like you watch all of baseball, which there are plenty of those type of guys out there. I know a couple of us here at Cubs on Tap are very much like that. Not so much myself, but like Joey's very much like that. Bobby Foster's a big like that as well. But just appreciating Lou Bob's numbers. Like this guy in 2021, I mean, he only played 68 games, but he had a 945 OPS. He had an 857 OPS last season, 264, 315, 542. He had 38 bombs and 80 driven in on a piss poor White Sox team in 145 games. And this year, he's only played 9 games because of the injury. But he's got 3 homers in those 9 games, and he's still a 750 OPS player. Like,
It's ridiculous.
it's just stupid.
Yeah.
He's a freak talent. His problem is he just can't stay healthy.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's just, that's just the nature of the beast. I agree with Matthew here as well. When it's all said and done, the bullpen is one of the priorities. It's an impact bat, and it's the bullpen. Like, that's their shopping list, in my humble opinion. I agree. I'm also tired of Heart Attack Hector in the 9th because he makes my butthole pucker on a nightly basis when he comes into the ball game. Did you hear the stat tonight, by the way, on Hector Neris? This was his 24th appearance. He's allowed a base runner, at least one base runner, in 21 of those 24 appearances.
Yes, I did. Yep. Yeah.
Like, he's been good, but he
walks.
likes to live dangerously.
Yeah, he does.
And by doing so, he gives every Cubs fan heartburn as a result of it. So,
yeah,
neither here nor there. Nick, I do want to steer ahead because I think the clear theme of this series was that the Cubs need to play better. The worst team in baseball, yes, you got 2 wins over them. That's great. We're happy about it. But there's a lot that needs to be cleaned up because you have a very important month of baseball coming up here, as Jeremiah notes, for the Cubs. June is a very important month for this team. Very important month for this team. They need to get shit going because here's the thing, Nick. This is the crazy part. Everybody, like Juice even talked about it. I sat on here a couple nights ago with Juice, and we had the same conversation about, well, June's winnable games, June's winnable games. June's games are still very important. Here's why. They go play the Reds. The Reds are only 2 games back of the Cubs for the last wild card spot. Cubs are tied with the Padres, by the way, for the last 2 wild card spots. It's the Braves, the Padres, and the Cubs are the 3 in the NL as it stands today. It's just crazy to think that this team is a fucking playoff team technically. But you have the Cincinnati Reds, 2 games back of the wild card for 4 games this weekend. And that's the series we're going to focus on here in a minute. Then you go to Tampa. I don't care what Tampa's doing. They're in the AL. You still got to beat them. Then you come back home. Cardinals are a game back of the wild card. Game back to the Cubbies. Yep. Then you got 3 with the Giants, who are a game and a half back of the Cubs in the wild card. Or 3, right? Then you got the Mets, who are 4 games back in the wild card. Then you got the Giants again, who are a game and a half back in the wild card for 4 games. And then you got to go play those fucking pesky fucking Brewers that are sitting in first place right now at 36-26. That's your month of June. So this easy month of June, if they play poorly in this easy month of June, they could be looking at where the Nationals and the Mets and the Reds are right now and saying, wow, we're 3-4 games out of the wild card right now. Maybe even worse. Like, this is an important month of baseball.
Scary. It's
important
scary
month
stuff.
of baseball, man. It's gonna be absolutely crazy. Matt, we appreciate the love. I know Stolle and Joey are talking about. You would never guess that Neris has an ERA under 3. You really wouldn't. He needs to be a case study once the season's done. Like, for baseball. The dude gives up a base runner in almost every appearance, and yet he still has a sub-3 ERA. Go figure that one. It's just one of those things, man. It's one of those things. I have good news for you, Mr. Nick. We have probables. We have probables for this series.
There we go.
So that was the thing we were waiting on. Nick and I had mentioned it before the show because Cubs were still listing as TBD. We were waiting on who was going to be the starters for these 4 games. We have them here for you right now. Thursday game, which is obviously the next one up. We will be live for a watch along for those that are curious. We'll tweet it out again tomorrow. There will be a watch along for tomorrow's show. It will be myself as well as Juice, and then I believe Nick, you and I believe Joey have both expressed that you guys will probably jump on a little bit
Jump on
later.
a little later. Yep.
Yeah, so we should have up to 4 people potentially when it's all said and done on tomorrow's watch along. Hopefully it's a great one. Hopefully it's a Cubs win. But Javier Assad against Hunter Green in tomorrow's game. Friday's game, also a 6:10 first pitch, will feature friend of the program and ace Justin Steele against Nick Lodolo. On Saturday, that's a 3:10 start. That one will be Ben Brown and Andrew Abbott. And then on Sunday, on getaway day, that'll be an early 12:40 start for the Cubbies in Cincinnati, Ohio. It'll be Shota Imanaga against Frankie Montas as your go. Nick, a couple more things here we need to talk about real quick. For starters, Jeremiah asked Stinger picks because he's going to take Belly, but we wanted to bring something up. This is just funny stats. Joey and Juice of the Cubs on Tap Dinger picking group are like the Cubs starting pitching. They're elite. They're really fucking good at it. Joey got Morel right on Tuesday. He and Juice are now tied at 12 apiece. That is best amongst both podcasts between us and Dingers as well. Mitch is the only other person with double figures. He has 10. You, me, and Tyler are like the Cubs bullpen. Because you, me, and Tyler combined have 12 correct. Tyler has 5, you have 4, I have 3. I'm awful. I'm god awful.
I'm right there with you.
It's bad, man. It's bad. So we got to get our shit together. Like the Cubs need to get their shit together, we need to get our shit together and get things going. Darren's got Morel for a homer tomorrow. Jeremiah's got a job interview in the morning. Good luck, sir. Good luck, Jeremiah. Still, it says that here as well. And Big Ball Coach asks, can I still play O-line? I probably could. I need to get into the gym for about 3 or 4 months, but I could probably still do it. I could probably still do it. He says we need you. That's not good. That'll be a side conversation. I'll be sending some text messages after the show. But I have one fun fact though for anybody that's curious. I have 1 year of eligibility technically still left, so I technically could still suit up.
Look at
and
that.
play college football again if I go back. And I would have to get in shape. I will tell you right now, like I walk up a set of stairs right now and I'm huffing and puffing. But like if you gave me a solid 3 months to like hit the gym, I could probably get in pretty decent shape.
Nice.
Just things to consider. Jeremiah says it looks like a good right guard. Jeremiah, fun fact, I played all 5 spots on the offensive line in college. I was the Ben Zobrist of the offensive line. I was utility swingman. That's what I did. It was fun. It was a good time. I enjoyed it, but neither here nor there. Nick, we read off the probables. We know what's ahead of us. We'll be on the watch along tomorrow so we can continue talking about some of the stuff from this series that we're talking about here tonight, as well as the upcoming Red Series, probably the rest of the month as well. But what do you think the Cubs need to do tomorrow night? We're siloing it to Thursday evening. What the hell do they need to do to get a win?
I'd like to see them build on what they were doing today, which is good plate appearances. I really think that when they can string together those good plate appearances and put the pressure on the starting pitching, get into the bullpen, things will be much better for them. In particularly, I want to see them stop flailing at sweepers in the other batter's box. Don Gomes, I'm talking to you. Very yikes.
Dude, that was so bad. Oh,
very yikes. But,
so
just some more competent baseball, especially on the offensive side is what I'm looking for. In terms of Assad, full trust in the ass, man. I just have trust that he's going to go out there. I just want to see these Cubs bats come to life, like string together some hits, get that power going. I want to see a big offensive series here. And I've said it before and it hasn't happened. So now I'm saying it again and it's going to happen.
I love it. I hope so, man. I think just as long as the pitching continues to do what the pitching's done, right? Like The starters, you don't gotta be Superman. I think that's been part of the problem is like they feel like they need to be Superman. Just go out there and be Batman. You don't even gotta be Superman, right? But yeah, it all starts with Assad tomorrow, the good old ass man. It is a classic. It's a good one. It's a fun one to say. I agree, man. I hope Assad rebounds by his standards. He's had two kind of not so great starts. They were still fine starts. Like I would still take them if you presented them to me over 162. But if he, two earned or less, three earned or less, even I think that's reasonable, right?
Yeah.
A quality start. I mean, the definition of a quality start. What is three earned runs or less and going 6 innings? I think if he does that on Thursday, Cincinnati's a ballpark where the Cubs historically have hit well, and there's no better time for Ian Happ to be getting hot than when he's going back to fucking Ian Cincinnati, baby.
Yeah.
He fucking owns that ballpark and owns that city. He's gonna crush, I hope, in this series. And if he has any resemblance of these last 13, 14 games that he's had right now, where he's hitting well above 300, taking that into Cincinnati, Ian Happ might be the single most important player in this series for the Cubs, especially offensively. Because just as Matthew said here, yes, score runs. And Ian Happ's in a prime position to help you score runs because he is hot. And he's hitting in the 5-hole where, you get the Talkmans and the Suzukis and the Bellies and the Morels in front of him on base. Good things can happen. Nick, before we get out of here, buddy, I want to remind everybody, as always, Cubs on Tap is one of 2 official podcasts here covering your Chicago Cubs. Do give our friends over at the Dingers Podcast some love. They are live every Monday night. They were live this past Monday. Be sure to tune into their last show. It was 3 of the 4. Jake was the only panelist missing from the show, but another great one from the boys over at Dingers. Give them some love. You can watch those right here at the On Tap Sportsnet YouTube channel. Like, subscribe, hit the bell button. You guys know the drill already. And make sure to follow them at Dinger Cubs on the socials. We're at Cubbies on Tap on the socials. I am at Loose on Tap. He is Nick_on Tap. And follow the whole gang. Joey Knows Nothing, Juice on Tap, Teddy Freddy 270, and of course, our boy Silent Bob _2, Mr. Bobby Foster. Bulls, Bears, Blackhawks. Bears are getting excited. Mini camps here. Real football's slowly inching closer. Had a little bit of football talk already here in the comments. I'm hired. I do know the system. That's true. I know the system very well, as a matter of fact. It's neither here nor there. Stolitz says he played nose tackle. His nickname was Speed Bump. You want to run the ball in between the tackles? That is a great nickname. And Joey followed that up. That is a great nickname as well. The Bears guys are hot. We just had a show yesterday as well. Go check that out over at Bears on Tap. The Bulls guys, big off season for the Chicago Bulls coming up. Billy Donovan III just named their G League coach, the son of their current head coach. Don't you love the Reinsdorf operation system, Nick? It's almost
Right.
comedy at this point. It's literally almost comedy at this point. And then the Blackhawks were in the rumor mill today because Elliot Friedman, for those that don't know who that is, big hockey insider. He's like the Woj of hockey, I think is a great way to define him. His hot take and bold prediction is that Jake Gensel will be a Blackhawk, which if that happens, Ron Luce might cry tears of joy on July 1st if he ends up signing with the Blackhawks. Just letting everybody know that right now ahead of time. But you can catch all those great shows, Bears on Tap, Bulls on Tap, Four Feathers Podcast right here on our network as well. And Cubs fans, you have friends that like the Southsiders. They're down bad right now. Send your friends to our friends. They can all be friends over at Sox on Tap. They can go drink some beers together or do whatever it is they need to participate in order to make themselves feel better, as long as it is legal and ethical and doesn't hurt themselves. We support it. OnTapSportsNet.com and OnTapSportsNet on the socials. The OnTap Sports Network. Go and check out what's on tap in Chicago sports. Hank says Assad can't control when Council keeps taking him out early. The dude hasn't been given more than 2 runs in 10 of his 12 starts. Agreed. And he's almost the perfect guy. It almost feels like this entire rotation of the perfect guys to be the stoppers. But they're coming. And Jeremiah says a college football show would be fun. We do have a college football show, and those guys should be ramping up here as the season starts. That is good CFB on tap. So be sure to check those guys out. Nick, what do you say, buddy? Cubs get 2 against the Sox. They sweep the series. It's a series win, the first in their last 7 tries now, technically, after 6 consecutive series losses. They take care of business, but it's on to Ian Cincinnati with Ian Happ and the boys traveling to the state of Ohio. What do you say, buddy? We get out of there and know how it comes on tap?
Yeah, fuck them Cardinals.
Yeah, well, let's say fuck the Reds, too. And let's go Cubbies, baby.